We're back. It's another set of episodes of More Than You Can Chew. As always, I'm your host, Dane Saville, SearchLab's Director of Brand Experience. And for these next few weeks, I'll also be my own guest. That's because we're talking all things automotive SEO. And if you didn't know, I was a content director of a 33-store group before joining the agency life. And that started back around 2010. So I have about 16 years now of working with car dealerships to expand their organic visibility. Today we're going to tackle a pretty big concept. Local SEO for multi-rooftop dealer groups. So whether it's 3, 5, 10, or 30 dealerships, we want to help you explain to leadership about the best practices for implementing SEO for the group. I've seen this issue. You've got your Ford store in one city, like here in Pensacola. Then you have a Honda store 15 miles away in a place like Gulf Breeze here in the Panhandle of Florida. Or you have the same brand just miles apart. Now here's the situation. Proximity, how close a searcher is to your dealership, is the most influential ranking factor in local search. And that's nothing new. So when that car shopper types in Ford dealer near me or oil change Pensacola, Google heavily prioritizes physical distance and local relevance signals. But we also have to be cognizant of brand consistency and some shared history among the stores. So let's take a bite into this topic by discussing first the framework. I often talk to dealership marketers, and the big question is this: do we take a unified or a unique approach? Meaning, do you run all of your locations under one domain with subfolders, or do you focus on each rooftop's own domain? Look, I understand the appeal of a single domain. It seems easier to scale. It's often viewed as cheaper because you're not investing in SEO across multiple domains. It sounds superior, like everything you do will compound. Well, not so much. Perhaps if you have a single location, a single campus location shared among the brands, that could make sense. Still, there's a little hiccup called site radius, meaning how far out from the core topic of the website does the content scope reach? To put in a more practical context, if you're a group site representing Ford, Lexus, Cadillac, Honda, Nissan, you have a very diluted core topic because you're trying to represent multiple topics. A Ford shopper is different from a Lexus shopper. An Lexus shopper is different from a Nissan shopper. And a Ford dealership is different than a Honda dealership, and that's different than a Cadillac dealership. Questions are different, needs are different, objections are different, inventory is different. So, you're diluting this signal for the algorithms about who the website is best to serve to. However, individual sites have a very clear core topical radius. A Ford dealer's content will be all about Ford, and it will have a Google business profile of the same name, Ford, and the category, Ford, and the same address, the same phone number that links to it. And it will be reflected by various directories, online mentions, and other signals that clearly define the who, what, why, and where of that dealership for car shoppers. You'll not have content that extends beyond the radius. There's much greater clarity and much better consistency. Now, cost, right? We talked about cost. That's always a concern. Here's the thing. The larger a website becomes, the more hours you have to dedicate to it. The more brands you represent, the more content you have to produce. You're not going to get far if you're creating 4 pieces of content per month on a site representing 5 brands. Hell, one brand has to be rotated out. So you have to scale content, which is not cheap. And at the end of the day, you might find some cost efficiencies, but at the expense of greater local clarity and thus results. And let's complicate it further. You go through an acquisition, which many dealership groups do. You don't want to lose the existing domain authority and existing familiar relationships it has with local buyers. I do, however, see value in a group site if the dealerships share used inventory, and you can put together a very strong used car campaign. It's even good for PPC. So, uniqueness. One thing I've come across is a dealer group, whether they've decided to focus on a group site or not is a shared phone number across the locations because it routes to a call center. There are occasions where a UTM code is used as the canonical on their GBPs. Do not introduce any ambiguity that Google may penalize. Always be certain that you have a distinct NAP-W. So what is NAPWA? Well, for every rooftop, it's your name, address, phone number, and then, as I've recommended, unique website. And that address and phone number should be the same on the website and the GBP. Also, a mistake I see when we audit dealership websites, having local business schema or organization schema or both. Or you have auto dealer and one of those other two across the group sites. Sure, organization schema is fine for a group site, but you should absolutely and only use auto dealer schema for greater disambiguation across the branded sites. All right, let's jump down a little harder. So we have our websites across the group ready to go. It's time for content. One of the most egregious issues I encounter is an agency that duplicates content across sites. Your homepage, service page, about us, new and used inventory even. They're already setting dealerships up for failure with such little content effort. I get it. When you're working across 10 locations, it's quite tempting to craft a single block of about us text and just exchange the city name and brand and then call it a day. Or same single block of text across new inventory, across the homepage. But Google's content quality signals are sophisticated enough to identify thin, templated pages and deprioritize them in local results. And even worse, consumers can spot that templated garbage too. SEO is about applying best practices and real effort to establish each branded website as its own entity, not just a Chevy or a Toyota dealer, not part of XYZ Group, but your dealership, your Chevy dealership, your Toyota dealership. So, other differences that make these entities distinct: inventory, what trims are popular, service demands, EV adoption, local financing preferences, community involvement across those brands and or markets. Your content and SEO priorities are guided by this, coupled with search demands. So you're not just creating content for the sake of it, but crafting truly unique and helpful content that delivers on real-world consumer needs and interests. Okay, take a breath. I know that's been a lot. Yeah, how about a joke? Why was Cinderella so bad at soccer? She kept running away from the ball. Anyone? Anyone? All right, let's talk links. Let's move on from that. A common mistake I see is that a dealer group sponsors, say, a little league team, and I'll use my town again, Pensacola. That's great. That generates a backlink from the local Parks and Rec site, or maybe from the league's Facebook page, or maybe there's even local news coverage about it. Then the marketing team makes sure that there's a link to the group site. Or even worse, tries to get links and coverage across all the brand sites, even the ones in, say, Mobile, which is an hour away. A link that is geographically specific, right? This very clearly is Pensacola located community league. Pointing to another metro is a mismatch that dilutes the local relevance. Map every local link to the single most geographically relevant location and leave it there. A link from a Pensacola community organization pointing to your Gulf Breeze page is a mismatch, right? Again, diluting the relevance of both pages when they're on there. So make sure local authority must stay local whenever possible. All right, let's pivot away from sites and consider Google business profiles, where things can become operationally difficult and disjointed with a group. I like to refer to this as having a command center, a single person or team or agency that oversees naming conventions, categories, UTM structures, GBP posting cadence, review response standards, duplicate listing removal, department profile strategy, and worst of all, possible suspension remediation. If you don't have governance, you're looking at the potential of multiple people independently editing listings, and things can spiral fast, and you lose Google's confidence in the entity of your dealership. And one last thing too, make sure if you're working with an agency, they have a unique email for you to add to your GBP and not a general email they use with all of their dealer partners. Because if that email has one suspension on another GBP, all the GBPs can possibly be suspended. Let's bring this all home. The single biggest mistake, the one that really undermines all their efforts, is treating every rooftop across the group like a copy and paste replica. You need to signal to Google that these are distinct businesses and show customers that you're speaking to them authentically. Generic content is expensive, not in the sense that you're paying for it, but that you're leaving rankings, recommendations via citations, and ultimately conversions on the table. Every rooftop has a story. It has a history in the community. It has its people. Tell that story. It doesn't have to be long. It just has to be real. All right. Next episode, we're pivoting to reviews, specifically how to respond to them in a way that actually helps your rankings without sounding like a robot wrote it. So thanks for joining me and taking a bite of more than we could chew, and I'll see you next time.